But it was a woman that had a conversation because I introduced into the conversation that Africans are the ones that bought, paid for, and kind of owns the Essence Fest, right? And so it was a woman that had a conversation on social media about it, and I'm gonna play it for you guys. It's like a minute and a half, but check it out what she had to say.
This is why black people will remain in the trenches. And when I say black, I mean African Americans, Africans, Caribbean, blackness as a whole. This is why we will remain in the trenches, because we have so much division in us. It is ridiculous. I've been seeing a lot of videos talking about Essence Festival and how people and how African Americans are boycotting it and how it's flopping because it's now owned by Africans, because there is no African American, there is not enough African American representation. And the way they're talking about African, how condescending they talk about African, or how Africans are the artists, how African artists are invited, how African. We are never getting out of the trenches. You see our people from the Caucasus Mountain, they will continue to do better than us, because we are very unserious. Us as a race, as a nation, and as an ethnicity, we are very unwell. There's something, they did a number on our head that we would rather crumble individually than unite and do something marvelous. No. There's always a division. Oh, these people are Caribbean. Oh, these people are African Americans. Oh, these people are African. Meanwhile, you're looking at the same shade of black. But now, when it comes to white folks, you can hear, oh, this person is Russian. Oh, this person is from UK. Oh, no, this person is from Ukraine. No, we don't hear that shit when it comes to white folks. But when it comes to black people, we have different shades of black. And so divided, it is nauseating. We are unserious people. No, we're not serious. We will remain mentally enslaved till the end of time.
So the question is, should Africans and American blacks even be beefing? I guess we could revise the question slightly and say, should they be as divided as they are, or should they be more accommodating of each other or more aligned with each other because they are the same shade, melanin and skin and pigmentation and all of that? Do y'all think that this whole American black people that were born in America versus Africans and all of this, Nigerians, Jamaicans, Ghana, Haitians, all of this stuff, do y'all think that they should be united, or that people that are born in America have a legitimate gripe about Africans that's not from here?
I think everyone should be nationalist, and I think she's a liar. I don't think all white people feel that way about one another. If you meet a motherfucking Russian or Croatian, they got a thick ass accent. White people from America don't feel the same way about them. That's not true. But whatever.
Kim?
I think it would be cute if we were all like unified. I just don't think that that's going to happen. From from what I've experienced and seen with my own eyes, all of the groups of people that she talked about who are not from America, when they're in America, they dog us. They talk a lot about Black Americans, how they're lazy and how they're stupid and yada yada, and so on and so forth. But I will say that in all of those countries, I've been welcomed, and so is everybody else I know. So I don't know what it is about when they get here that we get talked about, and so I feel like that's what's keeping us apart. A lot of it, anyway.
What's apart? Like what makes us together?
Like if we could build businesses together, if we
Just because our skin color, like our nationality, don't just because we're black, is that what makes us together?
that's what is
That's so
supposed to make
dumb.
us together.
Nope, that's not, nigga. You are not from here, nigga. Get the fuck out.
Um,
It's a nationalism thing. It's not a skin color thing. It's a dumb argument.
Well, being a nationalist means you want to detach from the country that you in. I don't think that's the right term you want to use.
Nationalist. I love my nation.
No,
No,
yeah, it's like when you want to keep your,
that
your country first.
no, it's
Prioritize
when
your
you want to.
country.
Well, it's when you want to start your own nation.
Nationalism?
Yeah, look it up. White nationalists, they want to be they
Well, you said
nationalists
you
in
put a word
general.
in front
Look
of
it up.
you.
Y'all,
Nationalists in general,
You said white. I didn't
you
say
want to
white.
detach from the you want to detach from the government and you want to be your own nation. That's what the Black Panthers were nationalists. They want to detach from the government. White nationalists that everybody says are
Okay,
racist.
you told me
They
to look
wanted
it up,
to
so I looked it up as you told me to. A nationalist is someone who strongly identifies with and supports their own nation. You told me to look it up, and that's what it said.
okay.
You
They
told
want
me
to
to look
detach.
it
They want to detach from the government.
up.
Maybe it's different versions of
Well, it
nationalism.
is
Maybe
because he
it's
put
like
white in front of it, so
sectors.
that totally changed it when he put white nationalists in front of it.
Okay, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But
it
But
whatever y'all
says
say.
it says national in simpleton, a nationalist prioritizes the interests and unity of their own nation above all else.
so fuck them niggas from Africa.
Well, Black Panthers, they wanted to detach from the government. That they consider themselves a nationalist group.
Maybe they were ill advised.
Okay, I'm wrong then.
It
I'm
says
not wrong.
nationalists advocate for policies and actions that promote the interests, strength, and well being of their nation, sometimes even at the expense of other nations or international cooperation.
Perfect. The fuck out.
Yeah, so I was wrong. I stand corrected.
So, continuing on with the conversation, do y'all think that this thing is becoming problematic between the beef between um, Africans or people that are not from the United States of America, but that again still has the same skin color or pigmentation or whatever?
I wasn't aware there was a big beef.
I'm sorry, Gary.
I wasn't aware that there was enough for you to like call it a beef. I didn't know.
I've
Like,
heard that they
what
think
is
they're
that?
better than us. They
No,
have better
I've heard that,
values.
but I wouldn't
Yeah.
call that a beef. It's just that's what I've heard people say. But my experience, even like Kim said, when I went to Africa, I felt very welcome. I felt it didn't feel like what you hear when you're here and you hear
Right.
what they think about us. But beef, I don't know. And then what she's saying, I don't know what the goal would be. Like, what are we trying to? I think the whole notion of like let's all come together as a people. I think that we missed that run. I think we're too spread out. We're too like it's too much has changed. Like who's coming together?
I guess my thing is I don't have anything against anybody, including Africans or anything like that. My thing is, well, I guess this is probably going to be problematic with people in general. I don't care to identify myself or separate myself based off of being black. I separate myself based off of being American. And so my biggest thing is if you coming over here legally and you doing the right thing, we don't got no problems. I don't really give a fuck about what you got going on. But I just don't like the fact that people just like to ignore American culture, but then they want us to acknowledge their culture when they come over here, and that's problematic to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I think that everybody should have their preferences. People can do whatever it is that they want to do. But if you come over here, you know what I'm saying? That's I think you should do it legally, and I shouldn't give you no leg up just because you just so happen to be an African.
Carrie, I think the point, um, at least from her standpoint, the unification would be essentially to be against white people. That's what I get from it.
Probably so.
Which to me that takes us even further down the
I
stay in
didn't
the
know.
But that's the only time black people
Yeah.
are unifying when it's against white people. Nigga,
No,
we'll come
I
together, but
didn't
it comes
even
against
know
the white
that.
motherfuckers. Shit,
But
it's
see,
alright.
like you could say that, but then if you just look at other cultures, she's wrong. the lady that was in the video, because like for example, all Asians are not the same.
Nope.
And
Nope.
a Chinese person
Mm-mm.
is different than a Japanese person.
Yep.
Their cultures are different. A Korean person is
And they hate them motherfuckers.
yeah,
That hate
different.
that.
A Vietnamese
Mm-hmm.
person is much different than
Yep.
Taiwanese person and all of this other stuff. So
Yep.
they have
Mm-hmm.
different cultures. They have different land. They got
And they get offended if you call them the wrong former agent. They get offended as fuck.
yeah. And so when
And the
you kick in with an
Hispanics.
Asian, you can't just automatically assume because by default most people think, oh, that's a Chinese person. No, it's not a Chinese person. Sometimes it's a Japanese person. Sometimes it's a
So
Korean person.
racist. Not
You
you,
know
but just like
what I'm saying?
I mean, and I get that their culture is completely different. If you go, once you go to those different places, like you immediately
ain't
know the difference between like Japan and China
Chinese. It ain't
and
nowhere close to the
Korea.
same.
Like they're all so different, but that's not something that we have the privilege of getting to know just with being here. But I think the difference is that like if you
We
see
do.
Vietnamese
Agreed.
people here, they're united. If you see the Chinese people here, they're united with other Chinese people. Whereas you have black people and we look at the black people next door to us and we don't speak. We're not united in any way.
It's not true,
That's
Kim,
not true
because
because
Chinese people here don't necessarily. I talked to it, and this is the honest to God truth. In my hotel, because I went to the Taekwondo competition, and so it's a lot of people from a lot of different nations. And it was a bunch of Chinese people, and the only reason that I knew is because I asked them, and I was talking to them because I was working in the lobby, and they was in the lobby, and there was a group of them. They was all watching something on this makeshift TV thing slash thing that they had put together or whatever. And I was talking to them, and they talked like you and I. They didn't have an accent, and I asked them, like, did they speak any Mandarin or Cantonese or anything like that? And they was like, no. And all of them was Chinese. And they said, listen, it was like we was born here. We ain't never been back there. You know what I'm saying? Like you probably know a little bit more about the culture than we do because you can speak a little bit of the language. And so they didn't necessarily identify with anything back in China. And that's just the honest to God truth.
And see, I call those people Americans in the same way that I was saying not too long ago that the whole African American title is just bizarre in itself because we're just Americans.
Yeah, but it's designed like that on purpose.
Of course it is.
Like I'm gonna just keep on saying the same old shit. Like you aren't from Africa. You ain't from Africa. You ain't never been. We don't have no African heritage. None of that for a reason because we're not Africans. We're Americans. We were the indigenous people to this land. What they tell you about history is a lie, and what they tell you in the history books is a lie. You can read several books that'll tell you otherwise. Slaves didn't come. It didn't come over here from Africa. It's so far fetched to even believe that shit.
Hold on, wait, Slimmy,
But
what?
yeah, so the majority of the crew and the majority of the slaves they died on those trips.
Right?
They
There was
died
a
on
lot
there.
that died on the trip and the
Yeah, they
transatlantic.
died. So it's not like they kept doing that over and over and over again to get hundreds of thousands of people here. Most of the slaves, they were from the Caribbean. They were from, you know, uh the those islands in that region. Most people they don't even have descendants from Africa. It's pretty much a falsehood. But they tell you that you're African American so you can feel detached from the land you were actually born on.
Slimmy, but
It's
the transatlantic slave trade was still really a thing. Even though there was a lot of people that died on it, it was still a thing.
Yeah, I mean, then we had Africans come here already way before that, but
That's true too.
that's why Liberia exists too, because they were trying to send black people back
I think
yeah,
that
they were
most
trying
of
to
to
them are true
Liberia.
at the same time.
this is
Telling me
so
that
so it depends on what history you subscribe to.
But I don't think it's like being a slave is not exclusive to black people. They just use
No, it's
human
not.
labor
Not at
in
all.
general,
But
and we just gotta acknowledge.
chattel slavery is what they tell us made us here in America.
Well, I
And
agree. I know.
I don't believe that that's where it starts.
But
I
I do
don't
think
believe
that
that.
Africans came here way before. they
So
started doing
Slimmy, you're
slavery
telling
how
me that
we
the
know it.
trans you telling me that they stopped the transatlantic slave trade because they was losing too many slaves?
No, I no 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 no. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I don't believe the majority of black people. I don't believe the majority of black people have African descendancy. I don't
You
believe
don't think
that.
we were
It
shipped
doesn't.
here?
No, no.
Yeah, I
I do not
understand.
believe that. I believe we are the indigenous people to this land, and they want to, yes, and they want to tell you something that does not support that. That doesn't even make sense. That it doesn't make sense that ships travel all the way from Africa, way back 100 years ago. To what is what's it's what
400.
is it's yeah, like 400 years ago.
Hmm.
Man, it's hard to traverse those seas now with the technology that we have. So you telling me back then they didn't have the technology, they didn't have anything like this, and you pretty much the crew died. The crew,
Let
the
me ask you a
people
question,
who
Sonny. Let me ask you
well,
a
hold on, let me hold on, let me finish. The crew died, the slaves died, they were living under the ship. They died. How do you take that many trips? It doesn't make sense. It's not even logical.
So Slimmy,
So
how did white people get here in mass?
Europe on a boat.
they came on a boat.
The indigenous people to America are Native, like, are Indian, Native Americans,
You
Indians,
say what?
feather
No, no,
Indians are.
no. Native Americans, they're considered, they're more like, okay, so
Mexicans.
they're no. Eskimos. They came here on the land bridge. They came here on the land
Eskimos are
bridge.
Asian.
The land bridge is, you know what the land bridge was?
No, I know
They're in
what you're saying though.
Alaska.
I know what you're saying. They do say
Yeah,
that they have Asian descent. Yeah, I understand.
from India.
That's in
They
Asia,
came here on the
yes.
land bridge.
So you're saying that black people were here first
Yes.
in America, and what we know today is America.
It was Indians.
I think they tell you
We
that,
say
but
that
they
black people
They
are.
do have statues of what appears to be African type faces here in North America, way before slaves.
The Indians were the first people here.
Like we were,
no,
black people were
I don't believe that.
colonizers.
I don't believe that.
Ask Christopher Columbus.
Who discovered something that was already discovered?
Well, he didn't mean to discover. He discovered other stuff. History is not. It's all wrong. It's all, if you dig
Yeah,
deep enough, it's all
they tell
wrong.
you a lot of things, but most of this thing, most of these historic, supposed historic truths were put here to displace black people. It's literally to displace us because it makes no sense. All right, so there's been thousands of years of slavery done by Arabs to Africans, right? Thousands of years, way longer than chattel slavery. They've never lost their heritage through none of that. They've never lost their heritage. How all of a sudden in 400 years of just chattel slavery will we lose all our African culture? How will we lose that? We never had it. There's no way. Chattel slavery is nowhere near as worse what they do over there to Africans throughout time. It's nowhere near as bad. It doesn't make sense. We have no African heritage. We have no African culture. All we have is the culture that we have here.
So I just deep dove into it a little bit. Um, Said the original people of the Americas, known as indigenous Americans or Native Americans, are believed to have migrated from Asia to North America.
So they were here first, and when everybody just kind
Just
of.
That's what it's
depends on
basically saying.
There are
the
also black
what you
Asians though,
go through
so
that.
we're kind of everywhere.
They're black Asians or a black person grouped in an Asian at some point in time. And
No, they were more melanated than what we see today. More of the Aboriginal people
It's
are
a
more
lot of
well,
melanated
they're
in
black
general
and
Asians
there's
or
a
they're
lot
throughout
of
dark
throughout the
pictures.
globe.
Asians.
It's a
They're
lot
dark.
of pictures. Even if you look
They
some
are
of that stuff
considered
up,
black Asians because they're not.
even if you look it up, it's pictures of black people showing what you would call Native Americans how to dress. They were in the Indian Guard. I'll show you. I'm gonna show you.
Yeah, there's a whole like separate sect of all of this. Like
It's
it
yeah, it's
depends
like a
on
discrepancy. Were the first people Asian or African, or did they were they African and went to Asia and then, spread out.
Yeah, yeah, yep. Hold on.
y'all gotta join us over here on the conspiracy theory side. I mean, we
Nope, that shit dumb.
but the thing is, we see the history books being rewritten today. Like the books that we literally went to school with don't look like that now. They've been changed over 20 years. Imagine what's changed over all these years that history.
Everything they said about Egypt was a lie.
Because
Most
like
of
I don't
it.
know where y'all could get pictures from. Because seriously, because what I'm saying is the time of the migration, the precise timing is still debated. Archaeological and genetic evidence suggests that humans arrived in North America between approximately 25,000 and 16,000 years ago. Some controversial evidence suggests possible human presence even earlier, exceeding 30,000 years ago. So how do they got pictures from anywhere from 16 to 30,000 years ago? Is what I'm saying.
Like the stone heads, things that were carved in the stones usually look have more African features. Well, the noses and stuff.
Dee Dee says, Anton, Google ain't finna tell you shit.
Mhm.
So
I
where
know
you
a lot
niggas
of
get your
people
sources?
I know a lot of people have questions about like what happened to the slave ships. Like why are there no big artifacts intact and stuff like that when we've got all these other things from all these other periods of time.
Water.
You can find the Titanic stuff in the water.
Wasn't made of wood.
Some of you got the pictures?
No, I'm looking them up.
What are you looking at pictures of?
I'm looking up
Black
the
people
photos.
teaching Indians how to dress.
I didn't say they was teaching them how to dress. They
Oh, you
was
said
they
you
had on
was.
they had on different garbs. But I'm
Oh, I
only
mean,
seeing
It's the
I'm only seeing
migration based off of, because it's saying that the Bering Land Bridge, the theory suggests that the Paleolithic hunter gatherers crossed the land bridge that connected Siberia and Alaska during the last glacial maximum when sea levels were lower. Coastal route. Another theory posits that early migrants used boats to travel along the coastlines of the Pacific, potentially following abundant kelp forests as a food source. Genetic studies have linked Native Americans to Siberian populations and reveal a complex history of migrations and genetic mixing. Studies suggest most Native Americans derived from a single ancestral population that diverged from East Asians and later mixed with ancient North Eurasians. In conclusion, the original inhabitants of the Americas were ancestors of today's Native Americans who migrated from Asia to North America tens of thousands of years ago, likely via both the Bering Land Bridge and coastal routes. They adapted to diverse environments, giving rise to the rich tapestry of indigenous cultures present today across North and South America. But here's the thing, though. Um, I still don't see how that removes the idea that the Atlantic slave trade still existed. And most of the people that exist here today that have pigmentation in their skin came directly as a result of the slave trade in Africa. Then we can go back 30,000 years, 16,000 years, and all of that, but I'm just talking about the 300 to 400 years where the slave trade actually existed. If y'all telling me that that's not necessarily a thing, all right?
what I'm saying is history as we know it is not told truthfully. It's not. They don't tell you the truth about
Cool.
what took
Winners are the
place.
ones that write history. We understand that. But again, like I don't see how that changes the dynamics of this conversation.
And how do we know it's not the truth? Like, who do you decide who to believe?
I mean,
History,
man. I
history
mean,
is
if
history
you
is
just
written by winners. I get it.
you
Like
say
that's
what
history is written by the winners.
or liars
Mhm.
or just liars.
I'm out of here, guys. I gotta
How
go
do you
work
how do
tomorrow.
you determine that they were liars? Is what I'm saying. They very well may be, but how do you determine what the truth is? Slimmy is what I'm saying.
What I'm saying, I mean, because if you really just think about it, it doesn't even make sense. It doesn't make sense. It just think about what happened. Where's our African culture? Why is it so much different? Why is it so much different? They don't have to. They can't beat your culture out of you.
What do you mean?
They can't beat your culture out of you. They can't just take it, strip you of your culture. They didn't do that.
You absolutely can.
How?
What do you mean?
How?
Everything that we culture is what you're talking about history, Slimmy.
No, no,
Culture,
no.
culture is black people in Brazil speak differently than black people in America. Black people in Ghana speaks differently than black people in in America. So my
No,
point
no, no,
is that
no.
you adapt over years, you adapt to whatever it is that you exist in and that is most popularized, and that then becomes your culture. Now, if you
Okay.
want to talk about historical significance, then that's completely different. But you can absolutely change somebody's culture to be different than what it was that they existed as far as their historical past and whatever it is that their ancestors went through.
So what I'm saying is Africans went through the worst type of slavery over there, right? They never lost their culture though. No matter what, their culture is still intact.
Because wait, you saying Africans over there or the ones that were
They
brought
went
over?
through way worse than chattel slavery from Arabs through thousands of years, thousands of years
Every
of
nation and
slavery.
every country at some point had indentured servitude and slavery.
Mhm.
Every last one of
Africans
them.
also
Okay.
had Arab
All of them.
slaves
And so you
too.
can't say that they went through the worst of all time because you can historically go through way more than 700 years of slavery to find out that indentured servitude was horrific in a lot of different cultures on a
Well,
lot
I'm
of
not
different
talking
levels.
about indentured servitude. What I'm talking about what Arabs was doing to Africans, they was castrating the men, raping, raping
How was that
the
any different?
women and the little girls. You
Slimmy?
say what?
That was normal and throughout thousands of years of history. That was normal.
What I'm saying is chattel slavery, it wasn't like that. Chattel slavery wasn't like that. It
So the slavery here in the United States of America is what you're saying.
yes, chattel slavery.
Slimmy, have you ever done any of those tours?
Did you go to the slave castle in Africa? Have you been to Africa,
Have you
Slimmy?
ever been to the
I've
African
never been to
American
Africa.
to see exactly what it
Oh,
I
we
went
should
to the
go to
Africa.
Africa. Let's go
You
to
said what?
Africa.
No,
We
Nigga,
I'm
should
not.
you
go to
wouldn't even go
Africa.
to DC, nigga. Shut up.
What's going on?
Hold on, wait, Slimmy. Are you telling me that the slaves that were here in America didn't suffer just as bad, if
I
not?
did not. Come on, man. I
Asking
said
you,
chattel
I'm
slavery.
asking you, Slimmy. I'm asking.
Chattel slavery is not considered the same thing as some of the type of slavery that they did over there.
So what was different? Is what I'm asking.
It was more like indentured servitude.
How is that any different than
Okay.
what happened over here? I'm asking.
Man, they
I'm not
weren't
debating. I'm
they
asking.
didn't castrate they didn't castrate men and they weren't
They
doing
didn't cut
that.
dicks off here. Is what you're saying?
They were
That was
over
not
here.
that was not a consistent thing. It ain't even told like that. When did you hear like that that was the thing that they did immediately.
No, they didn't do it to every person because they bred us. Because we were looked at as property, and so they had to keep breeding us in order to make sure that that they can profit off of us and that they can sell us and that they can
Right?
use us
Because
to continue to.
they weren't castrating the men to try and stop them from because they wanted to breed us. correct?
That's
I mean,
not
So they
every
they
weren't
did that.
no, no,
castrating.
no, no. Not every man was castrated, but they definitely made examples of some guys, and they 100% tortured the fuck out. Slimmy, have you seen some of the torture methods that they use over here in the United States of America?
Even in religion, it
Okay,
happened. They have eunuchs where they castrated them for religious purposes too. It's not all. It's
Slimmy, they had some of the most diabolical, torturous methods that they use.
I
What?
humans enslave each
Slimmy,
other.
Slimmy,
Period.
are
No
you
matter what
serious?
race. You got black people fighting for illegal immigrants. So it's not race specific.
I'm trying to understand what Slimmy is. I'm genuinely trying to understand what Slimmy is saying.
I think Slimmy doesn't think we all just came here from a boat and then got shipped here, all every black person. I think he thinks some black people were here. I think it was a little bit of both. I think we were here and I think they also brought some people over here. It's all
Why won't he
business. It was
explain
just
it to me?
business
I'm asking
deals.
a question.
what you want me to explain?
How was it different? What did they do differently as far as how they treated slaves or as treated people that was under indentured servitude?
So indentured servitude, you could work your way out of that. You could work your way out of
So
indentured servitude
you think that the slaves that were you think that these slaves were able to work themselves out of it
in
here in
America.
America? Yeah.
In America, yeah, some of them did. Some of them did. Some of them didn't.
But overall, Slimmy, the overwhelming majority of them couldn't and didn't. No, am I off?
What I'm saying is, what I'm saying is, the point is, I don't believe. You can believe what you want. I don't believe that the way that they tell us history is. I don't believe that it happened like that. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make
So
sense.
what happened is what I'm asking.
What I think is black people was here first. I think black people were here first because there's no way that we don't have no culture. We don't have nothing about us tells me that we were African descendants.
So what
We just
happened?
have we have the same skin. We have the same skin color to a certain degree. Some of them get really dark, more darker than even most
So what
American blacks.
happened to where we were taken over to where we were no longer the majority of what was in this country?
We allowed a lot of people in here. We allowed a lot of people in. I think the land was pretty much taken from us because we allowed it.
Hmm, interesting.
It's what some people call crossbreeding, Slimmy. Y'all will sleep on other races of women. Kind of washed out the genetics a bit.
Yeah, but I think that, they gave uh they gave the land away. But it is what it is.
And they also brought diseases that wiped out a lot of people.
Now that's definitely true.
I don't think it was necessarily like a malicious thing. I mean, it could have been, but